This episode is sponsored by the Hollywood Casino at Charlestown Races in West Virginia. August's featured entertainment includes Low Cash on the 2nd, Dogstar on the 9th, and Fortune Feimster on the 10th. Details and tickets on HollywoodCasinoCharlestown.com. Must be 21 to enter the casino floor and attend a show. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Welcome to the newest episode of Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. I'm your host, Jason Fraley, picking the brains of the top filmmakers, musicians, and artists of our time. The Righteous Brothers bring their farewell tour to Strathmore in North Bethesda, Maryland on August 15th. I caught up with Rock and Roll Hall of Famer Bill Medley to discuss the cinematic impact of his biggest hits, including You've Lost That Lovin' Feelin', later performed in Top Gun, Unchained Melody, later revived in Ghost, and Time of My Life, which won an Oscar for Dirty Dancing. Hey, Bill Medley, hey, thanks so much for joining us again on WTOP in Washington, D.C.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
We are talking because your iconic duo, the Righteous Brothers, is going to be doing a farewell tour at the Strathmore in North Bethesda on Thursday, August 15th. Now, obviously, you know, the duo started with you and Bobby Hatfield back in decades ago. He passed away, sadly, in 2003, and then Bucky Hurd joined in, I guess, 2017. But why is now the right time to sort of to hang it up here and call this the farewell tour, my friend?
Well, I don't, I hate to call it a farewell tour. I hate to feel that I'm leaving. I'll still do some work, that's for sure, and it'll probably take a couple of years to wind this thing down. But the traveling is I'm 83 now, and the traveling seems to be a problem. Seems to be getting worse in airports, but I hate it because I just absolutely love being on stage, and we do a residency show in Vegas, so I'll probably keep doing that because it's close to home and there's no traveling. But I hate the fact that I won't be able to come out on the road and see everybody.
Right. So you're not done. You're not done. People can go if they come to see you in Vegas, but this will be the farewell of the touring where, so you got to get your tickets. It might be the last time Bill Medley, Righteous Brothers swing through our area here on the East Coast, folks. So don't miss it. You got to get your tickets. I think you called in and you and I spoke, I guess, I think it was right after you started the Vegas residency. You were it was like 2017. You were coming to the Birchmere in Virginia. I think Bucky had just joined you a couple months prior. So how fun has it been touring with Bucky? What has he brought to the duo in Bobby's absence?
Well, he's such a great singer. He's an incredible singer and just a great guy. We've become best friends, and he's a great husband, great father, and but we were working in Branson, Missouri when we met, and back in 2006, and we just became real good friends, and I was a big fan of how he sang, and I'd had a lot of people asking me to keep the Righteous Brothers music alive and this and that, and I really didn't want to replace Bobby Hatfield or even try. So, but I went in to see Bucky, and he was doing a couple of Journey songs, and I said, well, if you can do Steve Perry, you probably can do Bobby Hatfield. And we sat down at the piano and sang a couple of songs, and it was pretty magical. It was like working with Bobby the first time we sang together. It just worked. And so it's just been a lot of fun, and musically it's been just really, really fun and good and right. And so I'm having a ball.
That's great that you've been able to keep it going, and yeah, obviously there's no replacing Bobby Hatfield, but if you're gonna try, Bucky Hurd's not a bad, who can do Steve Perry and Journey, that's not a bad not a bad substitute.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Pretty good, pretty good. Well, we want everyone to come buy tickets to the show, and whenever I have a legend, because you are at this point, my friend, you're a legend. Whenever I have someone on, I always love sort of reminding folks that sort of your whole, your origin story, a bit of your journey. So I know you're born in Santa Ana, California in 1940. Man, I'm a movie guy. That was a good year. That was like Grapes of Wrath and Philadelphia Story and His Girl Friday and Rebecca. So yeah, you predate Citizen Kane. What did you grow up watching? Were there big movies, or when you were growing up in your formative years?
Oh, I don't know. I think I loved like the Lone Ranger and Roy Rogers and all that stuff. And but when I became an adult, I mean, I loved Scent of a Woman and movies like that. And but I'm not a real big movie guy, but I do enjoy them a lot.
For sure. Well, I guess the better question, since you went on to do a great career in music, is which bands or music artists did you grow up listening to? Who do you think were your influences, in your formative years?
Well, in 1955, first time I heard Little Richard, boy, just kind of got my heart started. He just
that'll blow your mind.
Boy, man. I mean, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but listening to Pat Boone and those guys sing rock and roll just wasn't very inspiring. But and I love Pat Boone, by the way. But when I heard Little Richard, I just wow, what is that? And I need to do that. And then a couple of years later, I got into Ray Charles and B.B. King and Bobby Bland, and really was raised on rhythm and blues. But I loved all the guys: Chuck Berry, Fats Domino, Jerry Lee Lewis, and obviously Elvis Presley. And I loved them all. But Ray Charles and Little Richard really put me in the business.
You and probably a ton of others, legends, all of them, all of them. All right, well, let's take me into the actual formation of the Righteous Brothers. Then I know you were performing with, what was it called, the Paramours in like '62. Yeah. Hatfield, Bobby Hatfield, was with a group called the Variations. So how did you combine forces there? Do you remember when you met?
Yeah, well, we had known each other for about a year before that. My guitar player was also Bobby's guitar player, and he would say, "Boy, you got to hear this kid sing," and he would tell Bobby the same thing. So I would go in and see Bobby a lot, but a good friend of ours from Orange County that was working in Las Vegas a lot wanted to quit work in Vegas and come home and stay home. So he took Bobby and Bobby's drummer and myself and my guitar player and put us together. And we stayed the Paramours, and it was just magical singing with Bobby Hatfield. I mean, we were like two different guys, but it was like one voice, and it was just so much fun. And thank God we got lucky and we got to do it for many, many years.
Yeah, it's one of those where it's like you're both great voices, but combined together, you could achieve something that you probably couldn't have done just on your own. That's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'd love to do a bit of a deeper dive into hit some of the big songs that people might hear at Strathmore on the 15th. Obviously, I'm sure you'll be playing your first number one hit from 1964. You've Lost That Lovin' Feeling. I guess that was like a Phil Spector produced thing. But wasn't it originally like a faster, upbeat tune, and then you all sort of slowed it down?
Yeah, it was kind of meant to be kind of like a Four Top song, I think like "I'll Be There." Yeah. And when they started teaching it to us, I couldn't get up to the real high note in the key they wanted to do it in, and they were doing it faster. But every time we would lower the key, Phil Spector would slow it down. And by the time we got to "You Never Close Your," down there where I belong, uh, we and it was a lot slower. Probably if we recorded it the way it was written, it probably would have been about a 2:45, 2 minutes and 45 seconds. But by the time they slowed it down, it ended up to be a little over 4 minutes. And but thank God Phil slowed it down, and thank God I couldn't hit that high note.
Yeah, it ended up working out in your favor. I'm glad you didn't hit the high note, and I'm glad.
Yeah.
Did you, before we moved off that song, just really quick follow up? Did you find that a new generation discovered it thanks to Top Gun and Tom Cruise singing it, and you probably have multiple generations coming to your shows now. Some that known it probably first heard it in Top Gun.
Yeah. Top Gun kind of brought. I mean, if they would have re-released "Love and Feeling" when Top Gun came out, it probably would have been a big hit all over again. I mean, radio was playing it like crazy, and then I did the song for "Dirty Dancing," and that was a big record. And then they put "Unchained Melody" and "Ghost," and that was at the end of the of the '80s. And we were like bigger than ever.
Yeah.
And a lot of kids were going home to their mom and dad and said, "Boy, you got to hear this new group, the Righteous Brothers."
And their parents were like, "Oh, I know the Righteous Brothers."
Yeah,
Awesome.
You're here because of the Righteous Brothers.
Yeah,
So, it's very cool.
Yeah, exactly. Your song was probably the lovemaking music that birthed them.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, if I can, I'll get to Ghost and Dirty Dancing again in a second. But I definitely don't want to pass over some of your other '60s hits like "Just Once in My Life." Well, I think that was what was it, Carole King and Jerry Goffin?
Yeah.
They had a bit. If you ever saw the Carole King Beautiful musical, you've seen that they had a big friendly rivalry competition with Barry Mann and Cynthia Weil, who wrote your number one hit, "You're My Soul and Inspiration." So you get to work with both of those legendary songwriting duos. Any memories or what made them special as songwriters, you think?
Well, they're just the greatest songwriters in the world, and
Awesome.
Barry and Cynthia obviously wrote "Love and Feeling," and we were sent to New York to go work on the next single, and they started teaching us this song called "Soul and Inspiration." And Phil and Barry, a man, I think, got into a disagreement, and so Phil sent us back to California to work with Carole King, who was just this young girl, sweet little girl.
You might have heard of her, but not
might
at
have
that
heard
point.
of her.
Not at that point.
Yeah, not at that point. And we used to tell her, "Why don't you sing these songs? You sound great." But anyway, she wrote. Her and Jerry wrote "Just Once in My Life," which happens to be one of our favorite songs. And then we left Phil. We didn't want to leave Phil, but there were some contract things between Moonglow and Phil Spector. And we went with MGM, and I called Barry and I said, "Where's that song you were teaching us?" He said, "I didn't even finish it." I said, "Well, finish it and send it to me." And he sent it to me, and thank God they finished it, and it became a number one hit record too.
Yeah, I'm loving all these stories. You've worked with true legends, and they probably say the same about you. All right, and then I guess so. 65 was when Unchained Melody first came out, the original version. Before it blew up on Ghost in 1990.
Yeah.
What made that, even back then? What made it so haunting and beautiful and timeless that they could bring it back, almost 25 to 30 years later, and it still has that haunting quality. But could you tell from the beginning, was there something special about it?
No, when we started recording with Phil Spector asked me to produce the albums because he was going to take too much time and spend too much money. So because I had produced all the early stuff, Little Latin, Loopy Lou, and all that stuff, and so I produced the album, and Bobby would do a single, and I would do a single, and Bobby wanted to do Unchained Melody, so I arranged it and produced it, and actually even played piano on it, which I'm not a real good piano player, but and it's a simple song, but it's just a really great song, and Bobby Hatfield just killed it.
Wasn't it originally written for another movie too, like an old movie back in the day?
Yeah, I think Unchained. It was Unchained. Crazy Legs Hirsch, an old football player, was in prison or something, and so my love, my dog, we'll be together again, and and Roy Hamilton did it, and we were big fans of Roy Hamilton, and Bobby loved the song, and I loved the song, so he did it, and boy, he just killed it.
Yeah, and then when you first saw it on screen in Ghost, how would you describe your reaction to that? Like, I mean, we all had goosebumps watching Patrick Swayze and Demi Moore and Whoopi Goldberg, and like what? But,
sure.
What was your? Because they do like an instrumental version of it in the movie too, as in addition to your song playing as they're at the the sculpting wheel or whatever. But man, what was your reaction seeing that on the screen? Were you like, oh my gosh, this is just transcends?
Yeah, it was very touching to me, just real touching, and it was a very, very cool movie, and that song was absolutely perfect for the movie. It was just a great combination, and so I was very moved. I was very touched watching that movie and hearing our song in it.
Absolutely, it is one of it's an all-timer for sure. All right, and then we have to, before we run, you've been generous, but we have to come back to Time of My Life from Dirty Dancing, as you mentioned, 1987. That's one of my wife's favorite movies, so shout out to my wife. I love it too.
All right.
So it was you and Jennifer Warnes, obviously it hit number one on the chart, so it was huge on radio, but as far as the movie, it won an Oscar. Have you ever attempted the lift from that movie? Have you ever tried to catch someone and hold them up?
Yeah, my grandson, who's 13 months old.
That's the only person you're small enough to lift up.
That's as good as I can get.
Did you feel like Swayze in that moment?
Yeah, sure.
That's more. No, that's not Dirty Dancing. That's Dirty Diapers.
Dirty Diapers. Yeah. Well, that's the follow-up.
That's great.
Yeah. I mean, who knew that movie was going to do what it did? I mean, Jennifer and I really sang the song mainly just to work together. Didn't feel like because we hadn't seen the movie. We just sang the song, and then the movie just took off, and got home from a tour, and my wife and I went to the theater to see the movie, and I said, and it's right at the end of the movie, so I told my wife, I said, I think they cut the song out of the movie, and then finally at the end they played it, and it was a perfect place in the movie for that song to be, because the kids after watching the movie just walked out of the movie and went and bought the single. I mean, it was a monster.
That's hilarious to me, because you're right. It's at the very end, at the climax of the movie. So you're probably sitting there like, well, I guess it didn't make it, only to find out that it comes at the most important part.
Yeah. I was going to be very embarrassed in front of my wife. They cut me out of the movie.
And
But
instead,
it was
made
there
you
and it did
immortal.
great.
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, you've been really generous with your time, so we won't keep you all day. But just like final seconds, like this is the farewell tour, and again, people can, you'll still maybe still see in Vegas, or if people can come near you a little more. But
Yeah.
seeing as it is sort of the winding down, at least of the touring, what would your what do you want your Bill Medley's legacy to be? Like long after you and I are both gone and someone pulls up this interview like decades from now and they look back at you and the Righteous Brothers, like what do you think your little place in rock and roll history, crooner history, do you think you carved out?
Well, we started Blue Eyed Soul, which we were very proud of because the black people kind of named us that, and I don't know, just that I'm a singer and I loved what I did.
Well, you know what? Sometimes it's that simple. You loved what you
Yeah.
did, and it shows because we all have loved your music for all these many years. So thank you
No,
so much
thank you.
thanks for giving us all this great music. Seriously, we're in awe, and it's an honor to talk with you. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. And you asked me early what we were going to do in the show. We do all the hits. And all the stuff. We know why they're there. They want to hear those songs, so we give them to. There's a couple of surprises. We show Bucky off a little bit, and he has to pay me for that. But I must say it's a really good show. It's a really fun show to do. We have a lot of fun. Bucky has a great sense of humor, and so we have a lot of fun. But we take the songs very, very serious, and we have a great band, and so I think if people come to see the show, I think they'll like it a lot.
Exactly. And you and Bucky both have music in audio in your names. You're a Medley and we say we heard him, you know what I mean? So it works.
Yeah.
Thanks for that horrible dad joke.
No, it's a great joke. I'm going to tell Bucky that.
Yeah, there's got to be a better delivery of it. You can figure that out. But yeah, take that and there's something there. Work with that.
Did you hear the medley?
Did you hear? Yeah, I heard the medley. That's great.
I heard the medley.
I heard the medley for one of the last times, folks, at Strathmore Farewell Tour, Righteous Brothers on Thursday, August 15th. You got to get your tickets. You never know how many times you see these legends here in our own backyard in the DC area. So everybody has to buy tickets. So thank you so much, Bill. This is an honor as always.
Thank you, my brother. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks so much for listening to Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. Our theme music is Scott Buckley's Clarion. Remember to give us a 5-star rating if you like what you hear. We'll see you next time.